So I'm just going to do a quick video there just to show you how we solve simultaneous equations when we have one linear and one quadratic. And we can see there this is the linear equation and we can see this here is a quadratic. So first thing we need to do is we can cancel the x's and the y's by scaling up the equations, because if we were to multiply everything here by x, we'd end up with x squared plus xy plus 3x. So we'd still have x's and y's and we wouldn't be able to cancel. So in this case, what we need to do is we need to rearrange the linear equation so that we've got x equals and we've everything on the other side. That way we can sub in the x value here instead of x, and we'll end up with numbers and y's here, and numbers here. So if we have just y's and numbers, we'll be able to solve. So like I said, the first step is to rearrange the linear equation and change this by bringing the positive y over to the far side, and it turns into a negative y. So we'll have x equals, we'll have 3 take away y. We're now ready to start doing the maths. So what we need to do is we need to take the quadratic equation, and instead of x, I'm now going to sub in the value 3 minus y. So I take this equation here, instead of x, I'm putting in 3 minus y. Everything else remains the same. I now need to work this out. So what this means here is I need to expand. So I need to multiply 3 minus y by itself. So 3 minus y multiplied by 3 minus y is the same as saying 3 minus y to be squared. Okay? All of this stays the same. The next thing I need to do is I need to expand these double brackets, and I do that by saying the first by everything in the second, and now the second term, which is here, multiplied by everything in the second, and this here all stays the same. Now I just need to multiply out the brackets. So 3 times 3 gives us 9, 3 times negative y gives us negative 3y. Negative y by 3 gives us negative 3y, and negative y by negative y gives us a negative by a negative gives us a positive, and a y by a y gives us y squared. This here remains the same. Okay, on the next line here, what I did was just tidied up all my terms. So I put all my y squares together and I got 2y squared. You can see that here. I put my y's together and I got minus 6y, and I had my positive 9. I left that equal to 17. I then brought my 17 over and it changed from a positive 17 to a negative 17. These two terms stayed the same, or 3 terms stayed the same, take away 17. On the next line, all I did was I got my numbers together. So 9 take away 17 leaves us with negative 8. When I got to this stage here, I knew I had a quadratic. The only thing that I was aware of is that every term here can be divisible by 2. So if I can scale this down, I can divide everything by 2. And 2y turns into 1y. Negative 6 turns into 3y. Negative 4 turns into negative 8 turns into negative 4. When I have a quadratic, I need to take the last term, which is the numbers, and I need to get the factors of that number. So that's a negative 4. Possible factors for 4 are 1 times 4 or 2 times 2. I need to make a negative 3 with these set of factors. That will not work with 2 and 2 because I'll end up with 0 or I'll end up with 4. But with 1 and 4, I can say minus 4 plus 1, and minus 4 plus 1 leaves me with my negative 3. So I did that. I put in a minus 4 and a plus 1. So minus 4 and a plus 1. And as you can see, the value of this here hasn't changed. So your quadratic here still has the same value. I'm just writing this negative 3y differently. The reason why I'm doing it like this is because if I have 4 terms, I can group. And that's what I went on and did. I put the first 2 terms together. I put the last 2 terms together. And I grouped. So I took out what was common in the first 2 terms. Y was common in the first 2 terms, so I took it out. Y times y gives me y squared. Y times negative 4 gave me negative 4y. Positive 1 was my common factor for my last 2 terms. When you can't find the common factor, 1 is often the factor, so just take out 1. And 1 times y gives me 1y. And 1 times negative 4 gives me negative 4. Go back then and just make sure your signs are correct. And this works, so I know that this has to be a plus. I now put my... I can put the y and the positive 1 together to make my first bracket. And because my second bracket is the same, I can pull them together. The first y plus 1 equals 0, or else y minus 4 equals 0, because 2 terms will be multiplied together to give me 0. That means that the first term has to be equal to 0, or else the second set of terms has to be equal to 0. I then bring my positive y over to the other side and it becomes a negative y. I then bring my negative 4 over to the other side and it becomes a positive 4. Now that I have my 2 y values, I can go back and find my x values. And how I do that is I can take any of these equations. It's easiest just to pick the one that's given to you. The one that was given there was x plus y equals 3, x plus y equals 3, x plus y equals 3. And sub in your negative 1 here sub in your positive 4 here, and obviously just solve those two equations. If I bring the negative 1 across, it turns into a positive 1. If I bring the positive 4 across, it turns into a negative 4. If I add the two of them together, I get 4. If I add the two of them together, I get negative 1. So my two coordinates, when my x value was 4, my y value was negative 1. When my x value was negative 1, my y value was 4. And that brings us on then just to see, and you can see here that I had my line, the blue line there, which was the equation we started with, and the red circle, which was the quadratic. And you can see the 2 points of intersection, negative 1, 4, negative 1, 4, positive 4, negative 1, positive 4, negative 1.